So good morning everybody, we are back in the garage today. I'm Tyler and I got another install here for the R32 GTR today. I'm really excited about this one. So we are actually doing a swirl pot today on the GTR. And you know what, I got it right here, so let's just go ahead and unbox everything. This is a universal kit and I'll talk a little bit more about it. I wanted to take a look at it already, just kind of mock some things up, get a bracket going, as this is their universal kit. I did try to order the R32 kit for that is produced by HPI, but they do not make it anymore. So this is their universal kit, and there's not really many differences. It's really just the bracketing, but you are supplied with everything here. So you get mounting hardware, washers, serrated nuts, Allen bolts, then you get your regular bolts with a block off, and then your fittings for the actual swirl pot itself. I already took this out for mounting purposes, just to try out the bracket that I had made. You get your lower radiator hose connector, and you get hose supplied by them. You get sheathing for that hose to protect it if it's running around any areas where it might chafe. Constant tension clamps here for your hose that's supplied, as well as some worm clamps for the lower radiator hose splice that you're going to be splicing in, which this is the drain back for the swirl pot itself. You get a dummy cap, which is not pressurized, just a little sealing cap. And on top of that, we also get this aluminum bar here, which is nice that they supply, so you don't have to go to your hardware store to make a bracket out of this. I already had an idea of where I was gonna pretty much mount my swirl pot already, so I had an idea for that, and that wasn't gonna work, but it's nice to have. Get a little instruction kit. Of course, it's all in Japanese, but Google Translate is your friend. Would recommend if you ever have any questions when buying parts from overseas. So the primary benefit of this swirl pot is to bleed from these different areas on the vehicle and relieve any air bubbles that might be in the system. But it also has that secondary benefit of helping to cool your coolant system just that little bit more by taking from those different areas on the vehicle, bringing that coolant over to a cool part of your vehicle, swirling it around. You're relieving those air bubbles, and also that coolant is taking its time in here. It's swirling, it's cooling down, and then it's going back to your lower radiator hose. So with that, this is only going to benefit your cooling system. Because you're having that constant bleed, you don't have to worry about air in your cooling system. Just make sure it's topped up and it'll do the rest. You know, check it intermittently just to make sure your coolant levels are there. I thought this was a great piece to relieve heat from those high heat areas with the RB26. The back of the engine at cylinder 6 does get hot, and I do have the PRP head drain, so I do have provisions to drain from that area to the swirl pot, which is one of the few places that we'll be draining from. So let's go to the car and we'll take a look at the bracket that I ended up making for this and where I'm going to be putting this catch can itself. So I just took an L bracket here and then actually bent it just a bit so it'd be straight up, and drilled a few holes for mounting, just a little bit of adjustability, but it all worked out pretty well, especially since having the oil filter relocation here. A lot of people do mount off of this bolt here for the swirl pot when added. An HPI kit, actually the R32 one that's no longer available, there is a bracket that was made to go here and the swirl pot would sit here. Because you want the top of your swirl pot, you want the radiator cap here to be the highest point in the system. You want all those points to bleed off to there. So we're going to be mounting this guy up like this, and I slotted the holes in the back there just to have a little bit of up and down, as it is going to be pretty close to the hood itself. I already marked up where it's going to go. That's already fitted, so I know it's just going to bolt right on. But if we look at it, this should be just right even with the valve covers themselves, and it is higher than the radiator cap there. So this is going to be the highest point in the system. And there's that one of the bleed points I was talking about, and we'll be bleeding from the radiator here with the dummy cap, as well as, let me see if I can get to them. Might have to get a light, but there's this lower balance tube here. There's a port in the back that I created, as well as the head drain, which we might be able to see. I'll have to get a light, but it's back there, and I'll show you later. So now we're looking at the actual battery tray here. This is the lower nipple of the coolant swirl pot. This is the least spec overflow here. So I did get my own coolant hose, prepped it with constant tension clamps. So we're gonna slide that on here. We have one of the end of the hose attached to the overflow here, and our pressurized cap is gonna go on the swirl pot here. So we want our overflow to connect to this top nipple here. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay out what I think is gonna be the correct amount of line. I'm gonna add another constant tension clamp here and attach that up top. And then we'll start running our other lines to our other ports in the engine bay. On top of the radiator, we have the dummy cap because we want this to bleed off to the swirl pot itself. So come around and we have the coil. Pop that off. Pressurized cap here. Perfect. And we have our pickup from the overflow, and we have one of our other bleeds coming from, this is where that bleed screw is at the top here. And we're gonna save this last port because we're waiting on one more fitting that's gonna come and tap off the back there, because we do have two more bleed spots that are gonna come into one hose and is going to be ran up to the swirl pot here. But for now, we can get working on the lower fitting where it's going to drain back to the lower radiator hose. So we'll probably have it pointing up and then run up along the inside of the intake tube here and feed right in. Lower line is in and ran, so the drain back is now plumbed into the system. You can see it runs down and close to the radiator fan, but not too close. There should be plenty of room here for this intake pipe to run up. It is making a little bit of contact here on the edge, so I'll probably go back and use some of that sheathing that was provided there just so it doesn't rub through from any vibration, but it's coming out really good. We are down to the final line we have to run for the coolant swirl pot. And let's take a look at these back here. So this is one of the nipples I was talking about that's off the back of the head. That's gonna bleed by cylinder 6. And down below, we have this other nipple right here that we're gonna attach to. And if you notice, we only have that single port left. Well, I have this Y fitting here, so I'm probably gonna Y these together somewhere in the back over here. And I didn't wanna run any more lines underneath the manifold. I wanted to keep that as clean as possible. So I have another idea about running that line, and I think we're just gonna go up and over the top. I'll show you kind of what I used. I took the two bolts from the left and the right fitting here, and we got these rubber insulators. I forget what size these are. I think they're like 1/2 inch, something like that, but they're just big enough to wrap around the outside of the hose here and hold it firm, and it's isolated from anything else, so it should be just fine. And here we have it, the final lines ran for the swirl pot. So we have our radiator bleed coming over, and then off the top here, we're pulling from the expansion tank. We have our bleed from where the bleeder screw would be, and we have the line that we just ran over the top and down the back. You can see I took the Y and stuck it right behind the head off to the side. One line over and over there. If there's any issues later, I can always come back, put sheathing over it, but this should tuck away just nice, and I left a little bit of extra room so I can kind of manipulate this as needed. But I think it came out really well. The zip ties are gonna be temporary for right now. I'll probably get some cable holders or the line holders, kind of like they use for the AN lines to keep the lines separated. And that should top it off. But for right now, like I said, the zip ties look good. This came out great. I was so excited to get this done that I almost forgot to film an outro. So thank you everybody so much for watching. This is keeping me going. I really want to keep doing more GTR content. And you know what, we're gonna keep pushing through to next week. I got a couple other things lined up. So let me know what you think down below. We are probably gonna go back to the E90 a little bit too here soon. I got a few things for that as well. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you everyone so much again for watching. I've had great feedback, even for how small the channel is right now. I wanna keep growing it, keep progressing. So I'll see you all next time.